Rafa, thank you so much for your time here. Um, let's start with a brief introduction about yourself.
Yeah.
What like what got you to where you are now currently, and what got you to your passion for sports and esports now? So
Yeah. Thanks. First of all, thanks for inviting me over. It's I'm very happy to do this. I always like having discussions on esports. I don't even want to call it. I'm sharing my knowledge. It's more like picking your brain and you picking mine, and we sort of
hmm
share our passion. I'm Raphael. I'm a lecturer at the Hague University and a researcher at the same time for the research group Impact of Sports, where we do different type of research regarding the impact of different sports events and sport programs as well. I focus on the esports side of it and the esports events, and we're trying to identify what impact those esports events can have in our society. At the same time, I'm also focusing on different other projects which also involve gaming and everything else. A little bit about my background: I studied international sports management in The Hague a few years ago. After that, I went and I did my master's at the Johan Cruyff in Amsterdam for a year. And in the meantime, I was working as an assistant lecturer, senior, no, like a junior lecturer, let's say, at the Hague University. Great opportunity. So I thought, why not? Let's try and educate, the future game changers or agents of change, as they like to call themselves nowadays.
hmm
And after that, I did my second master's in Barcelona at the UAB, also in connection to the Cruyff there. So a little bit
I
my
did that.
academic, a little bit my academic background, and I'm currently doing my. I'm actually besides my research at the Hague University, I'm also a PhD candidate for on the topic of esports and gaming at the same time. I would say in the social impact, because to me, social impact is very very essential. Making money driven industries is good. We need that, but at the same time, without social impact, it feels to me that that we're not getting the whole pie. Now, why my passion? I think I'll tell you a little story, if I may. So I grew up in Greece, and I lived in a very, very small village, right, next to a small city, 30,000 people. The city, about 2,000, people in the village. Next to the sea, beautiful weather the whole year, right? Everything good. However, home, my dad was against internet. He thought that internet was evil. So I couldn't really have internet home. I couldn't have a gaming console. I couldn't have basic things that kids in 2010 would consider, normal. So I would go to friends, right? I would go to friends and I would go at 1 o'clock. I would sneak out of the house at 1 o'clock and go to my friends, and I'd be like behind the balcony. His parents would sleep. And I remember we would game the whole afternoon, right? So I would
hmm
probably watch him play, and then I would say, come on, it's my turn. And he used to play Lineage, right? Or Lineage, whatever you want to call it. It's not that famous anymore. But back in the days, it was like an RPG game, online characters. Amazing. To me, I was waiting every day, like in the summer period, to sort of be 1, 2 o'clock so I can go there and game. And I think that's what it started hitting me. And then slowly, obviously, growing up, buying, the first PlayStation, your first console, being able to play LAN, being able to play online against other people, you just get hooked, and it just becomes a different world, right? It's like the multiverse theory, right, that we have right now. I think that esports sorts of provide that, multiverse, because you are simultaneously at two different places. You're in an online environment, right? Communicating, talking, gaming, fighting, whatever it is that you do online, and then you're also your body's, present on there. So I think that's for me what gaming sort of, what made it.
Yeah, amazing. For me, like I always gamed, but I also played tennis, but I never saw like gaming or when I was competing like as a tool to like utilize it. Look, like I saw tennis that could when I was 16. I got like an agent came to me and he was like, look, this in the US is happening with tennis. You can get scholarships to study and stuff like this. So I was like, oh my god. So I focused on tennis, and gaming was like when I was recovering or when I just was having fun with friends, but I never
Yeah,
took it serious because there was nothing. So then when the collegiates started to get more traction, I was like, okay, something that I wish I had. I'm I'm gonna do it now. So yeah, That's my story with gaming.
No, that's amazing.
Right.
I mean, ultimately, it was a recreational activity. Nobody would have thought back in 2010 or 11 or 12 that it would get this big. I mean, after the introduction of Justin TV back in the days, and then Twitch, and YouTube and everything else growing so fast,
Mhm.
I think the popularity sort of helped the esports industry. But I think at the same time, we have to consider that data-driven models is what makes these companies or these organizations, these teams, sort of utilize their fan base, because otherwise we would still be in 2007 2008 in terms of incomes, in terms of in
Mhm.
terms of popularity, or even in terms of professionalism, if you may. And you would still be struggling to sort of understand, can I really make a living out of esports? Can I really make a living out of using my gaming skills, right? So I think there is this movie with Adam Sandler. It's called Pixels, if I'm not mistaken, where he's a gamer and they have to save the
Mhm.
world against alien, games, whatever characters. And then it's like it's one of my favorite movies, and I always see it. And he's like, how gaming skills come handy when you don't really expect it.
Yeah, yeah. And Rafa, I was gonna ask you a question at the end. It was kind of what we were discussing before the talk, but I'm gonna ask you it now, okay? And then we're gonna talk about it because I was very intrigued because you didn't finish your explanation. Where is esports going?
Where is
With all
esports
the
going?
research that you and all your network do,
Yeah.
uh, and consciously, like put like materialize everything into research, that we can use. So like, where is it going?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's looking at different things because they wanna find different things, I would guess, right? So, um, you look at what you really are interested in finding. To be honest with you, we see a shift towards, obviously, if we first have to ask ourselves, is esports sports? Right? Before we can even understand where it's going, we need to understand, is it sports? And if it's sports, what does that mean? Why is it sports? And where are traditional sports going? All right. So if you think about traditional sports and how they're dying out in terms of, TV viewership, and we see only like very big brands like Madrid, Barcelona, for instance, in football, or very big names in tennis like, right, Alcaraz and Yannick and all these players, right? So we see
Mhm.
only some professionals manage to sort of maintain that fan base that sort of boosts them and separates them from the rest. And like any sports, they're all trying to adjust, and they're trying to adjust according to the environment that they operate, and also the industries that they compete against. Um, can esports compete against traditional sports? I mean, we've always asked that question. Or who does need more? Do traditional sports need esports more than esports needs traditional sports at the same time? Because I think that's a great question, right? Does really the IOC need esports in the Olympic Games, right? And do we need to have an esports World Cup, which is amazing, by the way, that is happening? I wish I was 15 and having these opportunities, right? Don't take me wrong. I'm not trying to play devil's advocate. I'm just asking questions because I think by asking questions, we sort of understand where are we currently. What I
Yeah.
think is going to happen, I think we're going to see a shift in terms of marketing, in terms of utilizing these companies like Liquid, right? Because I think they're companies, they're teams, but they're companies at the same time because they fit the whole profile of a company. We see that shift turning into content creation, right? And then digital content creation, which is right now, very very um, beneficial for all the companies operating in digital environments because they are generating millions of euros through that, through those platforms, those environments. I saw actually today this. I was reading an article about how WhatsApp is getting advertisements. I'm like, why is WhatsApp getting ads? Right? So Meta, they have Facebook, they have WhatsApp, they have Instagram, they have something else as well. I'm not sure what's the fourth one, but they have ads in everything. So why wouldn't an esports team sort of use the same model and become a digital platform? I mean, they are digital platforms, right? We see Liquipedia, for instance, which is a huge platform and it's generating a lot of income from them. Um, I could definitely see this, G2, Liquid, T1, and all these big organizations turning into content creation activations. They are masters of it, right? They probably are the best content creation and content activation companies in the world. I think traditional teams will ultimately use esports teams to sort of activate their own products, and if they're not already doing it, right? and
Yeah.
and think of companies like Adidas, Nike, and all that. Maybe they don't need it because they have their own content creation teams because they're paying billions. Yeah, last time I checked, I think Nike is paying like 8 maybe 10 billion euros on marketing a year, right? Which is obviously, there you include everything in that, right? So money paid to athletes and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's ridiculous, a lot of money. That's a lot of money for one shoe company. And I think what they sell is not shoes; they sell an experience, and esports is selling an experience too. Let's be realistic. When you go and watch a football game, if I go and watch Madrid Barcelona play, which I'm a Madrid fan, right? Sorry, even probably you're a Barca fan, I'm not sure, but um, if I go and watch that game and I pay 500 bucks and I go back home, I have no tangible product with me. I just have a ticket that I watch the game, and all I get with me, it's probably the experience, and I hope it's a good experience, because if I lose 3-4-0 in Camp Nou, it's probably a terrible experience. So I paid 500 bucks to have a terrible experience, right? So esports is delivering non-stop experiences to the fans, right? And because of that, and how the games are played, and the level of dopamine that these games generate to people, because there's non-stop something is happening compared to traditional sports, or compared to, I don't know, are you a Formula One fan, for instance?
I watch from Formula One. I don't consider myself a avid fan, but
Yeah.
it's spiking like a lot, especially when like with Netflix.
Yeah.
Formula One has, and because of the content creation, because behind the scenes,
Yeah.
humanizing the pilots, like it's it's going up, and also that what they've achieved, especially like in North America, with in
Yeah.
Canada and Las Vegas as well, US, is like people that don't know anything about Formula One or any pilots just go to the F1 week because it's the place to go, stuff like this. So like they create the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's fancy, and you want to belong. You want to belong, and you want to belong in these events. That's what it is. But at the same time, Formula One, right? So I'm sitting. I think it was 2 years ago, right? I used to be a huge fan. I'm sitting in front. The race is about to start, and then my father-in-law says, "All right, let's go. It's starting." They start. Adrenaline is hitting. Dopamine levels is high, and then first round, second round. Okay, let's go grab a beer now. They'll be doing this for the next 2 hours. It's over. And I'm like, what do you mean? That's how they watch it, right? My wife tells me the other day, this young guy is going to be very good in Formula One. She doesn't even watch Formula One, but she watched the show, right? So the content they
Yeah.
were creating, the right, bringing these pilots, because they call them pilots, not drivers, pilots, right?
Yes.
Close to you, where you feel you can sort of relate to them, to their emotions.
Hmm.
That's what makes it. And I think esports teams are very good at that, and that's why I believe that esports teams and esports in general is never going to have the same structure as traditional sports, because they don't have to have that structure. They don't have the infrastructure for that, and it's going to take years and years and years to even go to that. And I don't think they want it, to be honest with you.
Do you think sports is gonna move forward like towards more like Kings League format, uh, or like more like
Yeah.
behind the scenes, like doing more partnerships with like streaming platforms to attract a broader audience?
They have to. Have you seen
Yeah.
sometimes in La Liga? I don't know if you watch football, but sometimes in La Liga, the first half finishes, and then the players are, and there's a reporter, and tell me what went wrong. And I'm like, dude, just let the kid drink some water. He's like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, I think we performed very well, and I think I'm like, what the hell? Just let him go and rest. He was running for 45 minutes. What's wrong with you? Because that's what sells. That's what they've been told to do. They have to. Otherwise, there's probably
Yeah.
fines within teams that we don't even know. and it's all about content. I mean, I'm running the social media of our university program, right, of the international sports management, and I sometimes, I run that with my PR group, which are students that are doing an amazing job, by the way. So we have like weekly basis, every day we upload something, and then when we don't, I get a message from the marketing team. Hey, your social media have been a little bit slow this week. What's going on? I'm like, what do you mean? I don't have to have so many posts on a daily basis. Like, take it easy. And we're probably one of the best social media in the university, right? So I can tell you, content is king, not for me, for us, maybe for people who are 30 plus, but for the younger generation, the more the merrier, apparently. And they don't really care about the quality, which worries me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna make a small pause and
Yeah.
go to the chat. Okay. Uh, Morgan. Well, he says hi. Morgan, if you actually want to ask a question, more than welcome. Then Leon says, "What similarities and differences does sport has compared to esports to you guys?" So, Rafa,
I
can
mean,
you
that's
answer
it's
that?
a good, and thanks for the question. I mean, it's I'm going to go back to the question I asked at the beginning: is
Mhm.
esports sports, right? And when I have this argument at the beginning with my students, the whole time we say, okay, is this? So some say yes, some say no, and then I ask him, and then is chess sports, right? And then I say, is drone racing sports, right? And then I go, okay, esports and sports similarities. They're obviously right now they're both professional, right? So athletes, since Corona actually, the esports athletes they have an athlete statue because back then with Corona they couldn't travel, and due to that they had to sort of come up with the status because only professional athletes could travel, and then they said, hey, let's make them professional athletes so they can nicely travel and then compete against each other. So they're
Yeah,
both professional athletes. There are rules and regulations in place. Okay, so we see. However, they don't have stadiums. We do, right? So they utilize environment spaces that they transform them into an esports arena. They do their games, call it a day. It's not like they have a weekend where weekend in, weekend out, there is a venue and then, an esports, let's say Bernabeu. That thing doesn't exist yet. Another similarity, I would say, well, we have right now associations. We have associations in traditional sports for years now, but now it's happening also with esports. However, with esports, the problem is that people, organizations, associations, they don't own the right to the games, right? So developers do, and because developers do, it's very tough to determine how the game is going to play, how it's going to look like, the competitions and all that, which makes it very tough to sort of create a sustainable environment, right?
yeah,
Where professional investors will come in and say, hey, let me run it my way because I know how to generate money. It's like me coming to your house and telling you, give me your keys because I know how to run your place better, right? And everybody's thinking, when are they going to let loose, right? Why don't they just sort of let people do their thing? Well, why would they,
yeah.
right?
And also, like, there's some video games that you you don't know if they're gonna be there in 5 years or 3 years, And in sports, it kind of doesn't happen, you know,
We
as well.
don't know because it comes down to the popularity of the game, and the popularity of the game changes. And I see that
Mhm.
directly with myself, which I'm a very small gamer, right? I'm not a professional gamer, but I play a game for a year, I get bored, I let it be, I play another game, I go back to it in a year later or maybe 2 years later, for instance. um, and I think this happens with most of the people, right? But in general, traditional sports, they used to sort of, they used to sell obviously the ticketing from events. Now we see that also happening with esports events, right? If you want to join an esports event, you got to pay a ticket. Obviously you don't pay money for broadcasting, but you got to pay a ticket. But we also saw jerseys, right? So merchandising from traditional sports, merchandises from esports organizations. This jersey costs probably $100, right? So they're following the business model of traditional sports. So there's a lot of similarities in that place, in terms of investments, in terms of how they deal with their sponsors, in terms of how
Mhm.
they deal with their platforms, right? The online fan base. So in that aspect, they're very similar, right? They have categories in sponsorships as well, like cars. Today, I just saw a new sponsor for Team Liquid, an optical company, right? So they will be the one having that category. That's done. But on the other hand, I think they have more they have a lot of differences as well. Not just, I think probably they have more differences than they have similarities, to be honest with you.
Okay, interesting. Also, there's Leandro, okay, that asks, what kind of content is the most appealing for esports audiences?
I mean, that's a great question. And if I ask him back, what does he think? What is his favorite content on gaming or esports? So, Leandro, what do you think? What's your favorite content?
Well, I'll let him answer. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm asking him that because it depends. You cannot really tell. Like everybody has different content in mind, right? So, for instance, when I was younger, I loved cheat codes and walkthrough codes, on YouTube. That was the content I loved to see because I was playing Pokemon, right? So for me, it was like, hey, let me have a ROM in my PC and sort of see how I can use cheat codes on Pokemon because it was fun to do, right? Some others, and this actually, I did the research on that a couple of years ago when I was writing something, and I was like trying to look what do people, and I had like I had a focus group, and I was asking people, what sort of content do you like to see when you go on YouTube, when you go on Twitch, when you go like on whatever platform, on Reddit, for instance. I'm a Reddit fan, so I watch a lot of news on Reddit, and I'm part of a lot of communities there because I think it's a bit more, less content wise, but more text wise, and you see articles happening and stuff. So I think it depends on the on what games you like. It depends who you follow, right? What sort of who you follow in terms of people. Influencers are big time right now important. I think I was the other day I was watching something online where influencers were playing against each other, and that sells nowadays somehow. So people love that. Unpacking gifts, cards, and all that
Even
is huge.
a paddle thing, there was like a
Yeah,
few like you buy and through others, like and people watch it like
competitions where you gift a lot of money and you gift a car, somehow it's selling. Man,
yeah,
it's so, I don't know. It's just so surreal. Like people, like it's like buying shoes. Like you don't know what you have. 100,000 whatever brands out there selling shoes, and
yeah,
people buy like whatever they want and whatever they fit.
yeah,
So content wise, I'd say, you can't really tell. Like these companies, they probably have the data, the segmentation, and they know exactly what sells. And I think what sells, is what those creators, those influencers are sort of making, and that's like showing them how to play the game correctly, competing against the best, online competitions with huge rewards, right? That's sort
yeah.
of what sells mostly right now online. But I'm
Okay.
curious in
Okay.
Leandro's response. I don't know
Yes,
what does he
here
like.
he was referring what kind of content is most appealing for esports audiences in LAN events. That's what he said.
Yeah, but I don't know. Is LAN events even still very popular? I mean, I'm not really a huge fan of LAN events, to be honest, because I think nowadays everybody has sort of their own place and all that, right? So when you talk about traditional LAN events where people would meet, right, in a cafe place, and they would be like, so back in the days, I'll tell you what, back in the days, how old was I? 13? I don't want to say how old I am right now. So there was this internet cafe, we used to call them. I don't know, did you have them in Spain?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So internet cafes, people didn't have quick internet home. They didn't have a good console. And obviously, I don't want to say they wanted to socialize because I'm not sure if that's really the reason that we're doing it. But the two main reasons is that we know console, quality of console, and also internet. So, and then they would go to these cafes and they would just create like a LAN party, and they would play,
Yeah.
against each other, 5-on-5s and all that. So I'm not sure. Like in all honesty, like I don't know if there's a specific content that these LAN parties would love to see, but I think it's mostly videos teasing each other, winning and losing. That's what I
He
would
said in a
suggest.
comment like he loves highlights of audience getting crazy. That's what he said. Yeah.
This can be true because I noticed it myself, and I'm happy he mentions it. Sometimes there is an event happening online, and I love to see the reaction of people. So it's not even about the event that is happening at that time, it's the reaction of people. And I love to see that when it comes to anime, right? So the anime characters, how they react, so probably the big boss on an event, and how they draw them and all that. And I do the same with comments. I don't really like.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would read the post. I don't care so much about the post. I care about the comments because that's where that's where the money is. And I like how people
Yeah.
fight with each other and how they argue and how they
Yeah.
put things in perspective.
Or to create new content, always look at the comment section because that's what they're asking for.
Probably.
Yeah. And then we have Morgan again. He asks, what would be needed for esports to catch up to sports in terms of professionalism, especially from esports clubs like academies, worldwide scouting of players, infrastructure, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think we are asking all ourselves the same thing. And I think we had this discussion before. We have to understand that it's unfair to compare esports to traditional sports. If you see for how long, and it's the same story where we compare women's football with men's football. Men's football has been around for the last 250 years, right? Since 1800 something, and the women's football was banned until 2000. They just started playing like for the last 15, 20 years. So how can you compare a sport that has been there for 200 years and has had all the privileges of the world and all the fan base of the world with a sport that has been there for 15, 20 years, right? It's crazy to even comprehend it. It's unfair, right? Um, but I think we have to look deeper. We have to seek deeper because we have to see how they generate money, how they make, what's their income look like, where does their income come from, right? So esports organizations, we know that most of them, they are 90% sponsorship driven. And when organizations are so high sponsorship driven, there's a lot of turbulence, right? They're volatile. They're not really secure because if I'm a sponsor and I'm pulling out tomorrow because there's war, so we know sponsors, the first thing they cut when it comes down to crisis management from their budget is esports. We've seen that happening for years, right? But how can you base your whole model, right? How can you invest a lot of money in infrastructure and whatever else it is if your main income is from sponsors, right? You need to create sustainable income. Another thing is we don't have the traditional contracts when it comes to players. We see players drive a lot of income for the organizations because of the fan bases. If you talk to Liquid, they would probably argue with that and say no because the fan base follows Liquid. And I would agree with that. There was a paper a couple of months ago that I checked, and they were doing research to that, and they were saying that okay, we found out that actually that's not totally true. That indeed influencers, players are important for driving income and having a fan base and selling the data that they sort of generate for obviously in this case advertisements. But at the same time, the fan base has been shifting, and they also follow organizations. If I ask someone who watches esports, name me 10 esports players, they probably will struggle, right? Probably depends on how invested you are in it. If I ask you to name me 10 football players, even if you don't watch football, you probably know 10. So again, whenever they manage, and I think again, whenever they manage to get money, whenever they manage to have a lot of resources, and they manage to traditionally invest in resources where they own their stadium, they own their facilities, they own their products, and not being owned by corporations and not being owned by whatever alliances, partnerships that they have. And whenever the government decides that esports is not the crocodile Dundee, right, and get rid of that crocodile Dundee stigma, right? I don't know if you're aware with that, but sort of the negativity that surrounds esports with whatever dark behaviors that exist, which by the way is not better in traditional sports because we've know that we've seen hooliganism, we've seen people getting killed, we've seen terrible behaviors in sports as well, right? But we just sort of put them under the table because it fits us, because sports has been there for a long time and it has created traditions. I don't know of many traditions in esports yet because traditions needs time. And a tradition to me would be a grandma or a grandpa together with the grandma, let's say, taking their grandchild and going to a match. I think we are 50 years away from that yet to happen. Probably I will see that with Ivan, right? When he has grandchildren, hopefully one day he'll be like, hey, let's go watch Liquid play if they still exist, right? So That generation hasn't come yet. It's not there yet, and I think that plays a huge role in terms of competing with traditional sports. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, I hope I answered your question to some degree.
Yeah, for sure you've done. Yeah. Very detailed. And also Leon says like he enjoys like storylines or narratives, underdogs, like rivalries, highlights about it between the esports athletes. So yeah. So yeah, kind of like very good. And getting more in like your day to day as a teacher, I'm intrigued. Like in the minor that you teach, okay,
Yeah.
how do you like? What do you teach that differentiates from sports management, or what do you teach in that esports minor in
Well,
the Hague
so
University
the esports
in the
minor,
Hague?
yeah,
Yeah.
we've been running it now for the last 3 4 years. I think this is going to be the
Okay.
fourth year. And we focus more on the esports gaming and gamification, right? Because whenever I hear the word esports, I always want to add gaming to it because gaming is a
Mhm.
190 billion, $200 billion industry, let's say, and esports is
Yeah.
three, right? Some people say five, some people say eight, some people say three, some people say 1.8. So you would be surprised in terms of how valid that data is, okay, in terms of
Mhm.
esports and generating revenue, right, as an industry. So comparing an industry with 5 and 200, I mean, it's unfair. So gaming drives huge revenues when it comes to comparing to esports. So we focus, and gamification, of course, has different forms. Gamification in terms of how to gamify your work, how to gamify your experiences, how to gamify your routine, how to gamify learning, right? Because you can gamify learning and sort of learn through gaming as well, through competing, right? And that's what we do. We sort of elaborate on the whole industry. First of all, we touch upon what the
Mhm.
industry looks like and what are the opportunities within the industry. I always tell them, when I have to promote the minor uh, somewhere in March, I tell them, even if you don't like esports, you need to consider this because esports is not about people who, the industry is not just about people who are passionate about esports and gaming. It's about people who are passionate about organizing events, people who are passionate about marketing, people who are passionate about venues management, people who are passionate about coaching people, right? And not so necessarily in coaching in terms of skills, but coaching in terms of attitudes, right? How to own it, how to become professional, how to look professional, how to talk the talk and walk the walk, let's say, right?
Mhm.
That's coaching. And I said people who are about traveling, organizing, right? Running a corporation, sponsorship deals, um, you name it, media, content creation, content activation. I can go on and on, right? So the whole ecosystem of esports is huge, and it offers all the opportunities that traditional sports offers as well. And I say, if you want to learn something different and you want to differentiate yourself from the competition, you better join the minor, right? Because that's what you do. That's where you put yourself ahead.
Yeah.
Um, and these are the things we teach them. We go to field trips, we talk to organizations, we talk to managers, we do research. Those people, those students are actually the pillars of my research as well because we're going to conduct three different type of researches and we're going to try to write three different papers next year.
Amazing, amazing. And a lot of those skills of what you teach are transferable. So that's also the most important
For
because like
sure.
if you you know if you master and if you especially if you learn and then you master like
Yeah.
transferable skills, like no matter you know where you end up.
Yeah, I
Amazing,
mean,
amazing.
both soft skills and hard skills, obviously, right? Soft skills, they focus on who you are, and obviously, hard skills is what you can learn. And I think esports, starting from teamwork, communication,
Hmm.
leadership, or empathy, for instance, right? Being sensitive, or at the same time leading, right? Leading a team, or being able to, right? So esports creates different sorts of motivations. We know that there is we have different sort of motivations in sports as well: social motivation, achievement motivation, for instance, motivation to achieve a goal or to win a medal, right, for instance, or to
Hmm.
win a game. So these sort of motivations are also they're very present in esports and in gaming in this case, competitive gaming. So I think we're touching baseline and we're doing a very good job, and those students, we had last year 44 students, and then we had 10 of them finding an internship in esports, right? And I'm like, hey, this is what we're doing it for. We want you guys to explore all the opportunities out there, go out there, and yeah, explore and sort of expose yourself, right? Volunteer, expose
Mhm.
yourself, show the world who you are and what your aspirations are.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah. Okay. If I just to wrap this up, I have one last question from the audience.
All
Okay,
right.
because we go going for hours, but I told you
Sorry, yeah, I'm a
it's
lecturer. I told you I like to talk, you know.
so Morgan again, like he's very engaged today. Like, do you think the Asian market could legitimize esports in the West and get rid of the stigma that's it's not viable career path since they really embraced esports and continue to do so?
I mean, when you talk about the Asian market, we have to be more specific, because Asia is huge, obviously. So when it comes to esports in Asia, we have to differentiate Korea from the rest, because I think they're way ahead from anybody else,
Yeah.
because they've been doing this since the 90s. And then China is huge in mobile gaming, right? So we know that for sure. And now they have started implementing as well also the Tekken competitions like 2 years ago. I think they started again. So that's also becoming big there. Japan is catching up, is also big. Right. So you have, again, mobile gaming is huge in Asia. When it comes to esports, Korea is huge in esports. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't think so, because Europeans are stubborn, and we have a central policy from the European Union as well, and we have a different culture, and we are very, if you have to ask, if you go and ask your mom and tell her, "Hey, mom, you paying for my master's degree?" and then she says, "Yeah, yeah, of course," and then you go and tell her, "I think I'm going to work in esports." I'm very curious to see what her, reaction will be. Probably she won't even know what that is. Depends also on the age, obviously. And if she does, I don't think she's going to be that. Probably she or your mom or your dad or your uncle, whoever you share that with, they're not that excited when you tell them, "I'm going to go work for esports." I see it in the Netherlands as well. I'm telling them about Team Liquid, and who is probably the Barcelona of esports, right? And they're telling me, "What? Where is that? What is that?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" So, and
Yeah.
if I tell them, "Do you know Barcelona?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course, Johan Cruyff played there, Messi, right? Or Madrid, right?" So even if they don't follow football, they know it. And so
Yeah.
unless we sort of invest in that, and it's generational, so maybe in 20 years from now, when the generations have changed, there's a big chance that we sort of move in. But at the same time, let me be honest with you. It's not like, if I have a class of 20 people, it's not like all 20 can end up in esports. Like, even if they want to, it's not like there's like unlimited jobs in esports. The top jobs that they offer a very good salary, they're probably taken, and there are openings here and there, right? But you have to be very good
Yeah.
at what you do. You have to be very professional, and you have to be very educated, and you have to know what you're looking for so you can sell yourself. And then the others, they're sort of work for organizations that are trying to become esports, that are trying to become the next liquids. And I think that's more realistic, because I know a lot of them who are willing to take in people for very cheap, because they want to grow and they're offering the opportunity of growth, right? And I think China in general, or Korea or Japan or India, Pakistan is growing huge right now as well in some games, right? So these people, they have cheap hands, cheap labor, and because of cheap labor, the opportunities to grow, they're massive. And in Europe, you can't survive. You can't really work in esports for 500 euros or $1,000 and pay your rent in Barcelona or in Madrid. I mean, I'm sorry, you're going to sleep in the streets. So
Hmm.
you got to do something on the side. And there is no professional that managed to succeed in any sector by doing two jobs at the same time. You got to focus on one and sort of maintain your focus and go all for it. Otherwise, you're just
Hmm.
going to be playing around. It's like working full time for the ministry and running your own business. I'm sorry, but your own business won't generate much.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I know I said last question, but we have Nicole here that just put a question when I said let's wrap this up. So, do you think player unions or independent organizations could exist in esports, or will publishers always have too much control?
I wish they would exist, to be honest with you, because I was here at the FIF Pro in the Netherlands, where they represent the football players, obviously, right? And they ensure that everybody is being represented correctly, and then there's like a union and everything else. Um, I think when that happens, there's going to be a shift in esports. So I hope so, and I think so, and I really want to see that. And I think maybe now with the Olympic Games, the esports Olympic Games in 2027, I think it's going to happen. I just don't want to see another delay in that, because if we see another delay in that Olympic Games, then it shows that we're not ready yet. Because the previous delay, it just told us we're not ready yet, right? And we're not ready yet, not because of infrastructure, because there's hundreds of venues you can go and rent and create an esports arena. There's no doubt about that. There are companies out there who they will do it in a month, right, and make the base atmosphere you can have. But we're not ready yet because we don't have that selection of talents. Because when you see esports organizations operating in any country, they don't even have local talents. Most of the times they have imported talents, which I'm not against. But how can you represent your country if most of the investments goes to international players, right? How can you build
Yeah.
upon that? And if that's the case, first it needs to start locally. So it needs to start in the country and then goes into a more a broader concept like a Europe and then a global thing. And I think there's a lot of organizations out there who are trying to take and maintain power, but like you mentioned, developers, man, they are sharks and they own the rights to the games. And in all honesty, developers don't need us as much as we need them at this point. Because without a game, it's like, the story with FIFA and AFC, right? So they said, we'll develop our own game. Yeah, good luck doing that. How? It takes millions. And you don't even have the fan base for that game. And you don't even know if it's going to be successful. And you don't even have the expertise. So that's not going to happen. That's a big, 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 bold move that they made. They should have never, never, broken up with FIFA. That was a big mistake in my eyes.
Yeah. Rafa, thank you so much for your time, man. Uh, you've
Thank you.
added
I
so
hope.
much value to the audience, and all I've done is listen because like it was so interesting. So like, thank you so much for this, guys. Follow Rafa on LinkedIn or on his other social media. There's people watching us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, and X. But yeah, most of the people asking questions were from LinkedIn. So yeah,
Thank you, guys. I hope I answered your questions. If you have more, just let me know. Just send me a message. I'm always happy to chat and give some tips if I can. And yeah, just keep it real and keep growing.